Check, check. It's loud. Check, check, check. We're good? All right. All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to St. John's Jesuit High School and Academy. My name is Mr. Carroll. I am the administrator of the Academy here at St. John's. So I want to welcome everyone. This is our last match of the season. So I want to wish everyone good luck. Just a reminder to some of St. John's students who are here, and a reminder to everyone that when the teams are up here competing, the audience must remain silent, and there's no yelling of answers or oohing and eyeing when they get one right or wrong. So please be respectful of all of them when they are up here. So we can make sure our devices are put away, and let's pray before we start our match. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Good and gracious God, thank you for the gift of today. Thank you for allowing us to work on becoming better people. Please remember your Son in this Christmas season, this Advent season, as we prepare for the birth of your Son. Please let us remember the reason that we are celebrating this Christmas season. Please watch over these students today. Please watch over these students as they venture into Christmas vacation, the long-awaited Christmas vacation in the next week or so. Please return them to us, and that we may continue the rest of the year the best that we know how. We ask everything in your name. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. So our first match will be Cardinal Stritch and St. John's Academy. So if those students could come forward. All right, if we can go down and test your buzzer and state your name, please. We'll start down here to my left.
Quinn.
Carson.
Joseph.
Evan.
Adam.
There's like a button, you know.
Hold down that button. Try holding it down a little bit.
Testing. Oh.
There you go.
Blake.
Caleb.
Antonio.
Austin.
Josh.
Okay, so these are two practice questions. It got its name from having been largely sourced on the island of Cyprus. It is a constituent of the blood pigment of mollusks and crustaceans, the first metal to be smelted and the first to be cast into a mold. What is this chemical element known for its high thermal and electrical conductivity?
Copper.
That is correct. The first president of its restored republic took office in 1857 after its emperor was executed. The National Revolutionary Party held its presidency from 1928 to 2000 and took office back in 2012 after 12 years under National Action Party and Presidents Vicente Fox and Felipe Calderon. What is this nation currently led by Enrique Pena Nieto, whose other presidents included Benito Juarez and Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna? That is incorrect.
Please repeat.
Sure. The first president of its restored republic took office in 1857 after its emperor was executed. The National Revolutionary Party held the presidency from 1928 to 2000 and took the office back in 2012 after 12 years under the National Action Party and Presidents Vicente Fox and Felipe Calderon. What is this nation currently led by Enrique Pena Nieto, whose other presidents include Benito Juarez and Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna?
Cuba.
Incorrect. Correct answer is Mexico. All right, so these are into the questions. The first chapter of this work, titled Economy, outlines the project and includes the poem, The Pretensions of Poverty. Other chapters are titled Visitors, The Bean Field, Higher Law, and The Pond in Winter. What is this account of a more than 2-year project in which the author lived in solitude on a quest of discovery by transcendentalist author Henry David Thoreau? Time? Correct answer is Walden. A river was given this name by the Spanish due to its red silt, and the state bearing the same name was admitted to the Union in 1876. The best known river with this name runs through parts of 7 states, and the state voted in 2012 to regulate marijuana in a similar manner to alcohol. What is the name of the state whose state songs are Where the Colombians Grow and Rocky Mountain High?
Colorado.
That is correct. We are playing. Let's pause for a second. This music is in between our class periods. Feel free to sing along if you know, or dance. Whatever works. All right. So we have 4 minutes in between classes, and that, I think, was 8. All right, so let's continue. As the first state to be readmitted to the Union, it avoided many of the tensions of congressional Reconstruction. Yet it was here that the Ku Klux Klan was founded in the same year that Reconstruction started. Name the state. Incorrect. As the first state to be readmitted to the Union, it avoided many of the tensions of congressional Reconstruction. Yet it was here that the Ku Klux Klan was founded in the same year that Reconstruction started. Name the state.
Maryland.
Incorrect. Correct answer is Tennessee. His sword is Rindon, and he receives the epic wolf bane after he kills the wolf Mogrim, chief of the secret police. He's the eldest Palvani's brother and assumes the throne as High King of Narnia after helping the Aslan defeat the White Witch. Who is he?
Peter.
That is correct. Rock Hudson in 1957 and Gary Cooper in 1932 both starred as Frederick Henry in film versions of this novel, banned in fascist Italy until 1948. A story of the love affairs between Catherine Barclay and an American serving in the Italian Ambulance Corps. What is this novel by Ernest Hemingway? Correct answer is Farewell to Arms. They are chemical substances produced by microorganisms that destroy or control the growth of all or of other microorganisms. Medical use began in the Far East and was noted in classical Greece and Rome. The modern era began when Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. Name these substances.
Mold.
Incorrect. They are chemical substances produced by microorganisms that destroy or control the growth of other microorganisms.
Acid.
Incorrect. Antibiotics. This country is the subject of Robert Conquest, The Harvest of Sorrow. Gleaning leftovers gained or grain after the harvest was theft from the state, and 200,000 people were imprisoned under the law. What country was ravaged by its leader's attack on the peasants, and 20 million family farms disappeared between 1929 and 1934? Soviet Union. In Hebrew, or its Hebrew name, taken from its opening phrase, translates as these words. Its Greek name, used in English, translates as second law. What is this Old Testament book ascribed to Moses?
Exodus.
Incorrect. Its Hebrew name, taken from its opening phrase, translates as these words. Its Greek name, used in English, translates as second law. What is this Old Testament book ascribed to Moses?
Leviticus.
Incorrect. Deuteronomy. Math, I would assume. Not really? Okay, never mind. But no, because it's not solid. In physics, this word can precede properties such as linear expansion or of friction. All algebraic expressions have at least one of these numbers. What do we call?
Variables.
Incorrect. In physics, this word can precede properties such as of linear expansion or of friction. All algebraic expressions have at least one of these numbers. What do we call the 4 and the 3 in 4x plus 3y plus z? That is correct. Please hold the applause. A number on a liquor bottle, a photographer's test print, a geometry class challenge, and a prosecutor's burden. What word applies to them all? Proof. Responsible for radioactive decay, what fundamental force was united with electromagnetism in the 1970s? The weak force. Examples of this in literature include the Penelope chapter concluding Ulysses by James Joyce. The opening of A Tale of Two Cities could be called this, given that 119 words precede the first period. Combining two or more clauses when you should really separate them with a period.
Run-on sentence.
Correct. These numbers include 0 and the counting numbers. They have a name.
Integers.
Incorrect. These numbers include 0 and the counting numbers. They have a name that means the opposite of partial. What are numbers like?
Whole numbers.
Correct. This concept began to be widely studied after John McCarthy organized a 1956 summer research project at Dartmouth. Such research experienced a winter in the 1970s, but has since seen success in applications such as AlphaGo and Watson. What is this concept? A form of thinking exhibited by machines.
Artificial intelligence.
Correct. These objects have long been associated in Western culture as harbingers of doom, such as in the upper border of scene 32 of the Bayeux Tapestry. The minor planets called centaurs have characteristics of both asteroids and what other celestial objects?
Comet.
Correct. It was criticized in the New York press in September and October 1787 by authors who called themselves Cato and Brutus. The Federalist is a series of 85 essays written by James Madison, Alexander Hamilton.
Federalist Papers?
Incorrect. It was criticized in the New York press in September and October of 1787 by authors who called themselves Cato and Brutus. The Federalist is a series of 85 essays written by James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay in support of what political document?
The Declaration of Independence.
Incorrect. The Constitution. That is the end of the match. The next two are All Saints and St. Rose. Final score of that was St. John's 7, Cardinal Stritch 5.
Taking it off, Clint.
start with All Saints. You could test the buzzer and the microphone. State your name. Microphone.
Nora.
Ben.
That works.
Trevor.
Owen.
Elizabeth. Lily. Lucy. Lucy. Enora.
All right. Thank you. Two test questions. If real stars can be no smaller than 1/20th the mass of the sun and no longer than 50 times the mass of the sun, calculate. I'm sorry, this is math. Let me start over. I'll get it right, I promise. If real stars can be no smaller than 1/20th the mass of the sun and no larger than 50 times the mass of the sun, calculate how much more massive is the biggest star than the smallest star. Correct answer is 1,000. Elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1974, he spent his entire career in the major leagues, 1951 to 1968 with the New York Yankees. Pardon me?
Babe Ruth.
Incorrect. Elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1974, he spent his entire career in the major leagues, from 1951 to 1968 with the New York Yankees. His record of 18 World Series home runs still stands. Who was he?
Joe DiMaggio.
Incorrect. Mickey Mantle. All right, here we go. 23 million of this country's residents are Muslim, and 33 million are Christians. More than 180 million practice a religion that focuses on living in harmony with the way. What is this country with more than 200 million Buddhists and...
India.
Incorrect. 23 million of this country's residents are Muslim, and 33 million are Christians. More than 180 million practice a religion that focuses on living in harmony with the way. What is this country with more than 200 million Buddhists and 754 million people who practice worship of gods, nature, or ancestors? Correct answer is China. What kind of surgery is performed whenever someone wants to improve the appearance of some feature of their body?
Plastic surgery.
Correct. It was Iraq's foe for much of the 1980s. It's an OPEC member on the Caspian Sea. In 1979, an Islamic revolution overthrew the rule of the Shah, causing him to flee the country with his family. What is this country formerly known as Persia?
Iran.
That is correct. Constructed between 1861 and February of 1862, it was called a cheese box on a raft. Which of the two ships involved in the first encounter of the ironclad sank in 1862 in rough seas during a violent storm off Cape Hatteras? Monitor. Civil War soldier John Pemberton became addicted to morphine and spent the next 20 years trying to develop a substitute. In 1899, Benjamin Thomas and Joseph Whitehead of Chattanooga, Tennessee, acquired sole right to bottle his creation. What is this drink that in 1903 removed all traces of? That is correct. The vice president of the U.S. from 1965 to 1969 was from this state. Lake Itasca is in its state, which is the source of the Mississippi River. The Mayo Clinic and Foundation is found there, and it is the farthest west of the states touching the Great Lakes. Name this the Gopher State.
Minnesota.
That is correct. It is both the southernmost and westernmost of the state capitals, called the Crossroads of the Pacific or the Big Pineapple, and situated on the island of Oahu. What is the state capital of Hawaii?
Honolulu.
That is correct. In this year, Beethoven's Symphony No. 1 premieres. Alonzo Volta develops the first chemical battery. The U.S. Library of Congress is founded. The British Act of Union unites the Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. In what year did these events occur? The same year in which Thomas Jefferson defeated John Adams for the presidency. Incorrect. In this year, Beethoven's Symphony No. 1 premieres. Alessandro Volta developed the first chemical battery.
1796.
Incorrect. 1800. Math question? I'm sure. A square has an area of 121 square inches. What is the perimeter in inches of the square?
44.
That is correct. The Arafura Sea lies to its west, and the Coral Sea and Torres Strait are on its east. Its shape, like that of a bird of paradise, gives its two peninsulas named birds. Incorrect. The Arafura Sea lies to its west, and the Coral Sea and Torres Strait are on its east. Its shape, like that of a bird of paradise, gives its two peninsulas named Bird's Head and Bird's Tail. What is this island split between Indonesia and another nation, the second largest island in the world? New Guinea. This style of jazz combines elements of ragtime and blues and is played by a small group of instruments.
Smooth jazz.
Incorrect. This style of jazz combines elements of ragtime and blues and is played by a small group of instruments. It originated in New Orleans and is marked by strongly accented 4/4 rhythm with distinctive improvisation. What is the style that was originally part of the name of a band founded in 1917? Dixieland. He was the only inductee into the U.S. Chess Hall of Fame in 1999. He invented an arrangement of the glass harmonica that mounted the bowls on a rotating iron spindle. Who wrote to his daughter Sally, "I wish the bald eagle had not been chosen as the representative of our country. He is a bird of bad moral character, like those among men who live by sharping and robbing. He is generally poor and often very lousy. The turkey is a much more respectable bird, and withal a true original native of America. Benjamin Franklin. Solomon built his navy on the shore of this sea. The Canal of the Pharaohs was an ancient waterway cut between the Nile and this body of water. Israel, Egypt, and Jordan have specified protected areas to conserve the coral reefs of which body of water? Incorrect. Solomon built his navy on the shore of this sea. The Canal of the Pharaohs was an ancient waterway cut between the Nile and this body of water. Israel, Egypt, and Jordan have specified protected areas to conserve the coral reef of which body of water?
The Red Sea.
Say that again.
The Red Sea.
That is correct. In math, a complex one is identical to a particular complex number, except that the sign for the imaginary part is opposite. In grammar, what verb means to inflect a verb in its various forms to signify number, person, voice, mood, and tense?
Verb.
Incorrect. In math, a complex one is identical to a particular complex number, except that the sign for the imaginary part is opposite. In grammar, what verb means to inflect a verb in its various forms to signify number, person, voice, mood, and tense? Conjugate. Unlike the disorganized type of schizophrenia, disorganized speech and disorganized behavior are not present in this type. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition in 2013, removed this and the other categories of schizophrenia because the conditions are not stable. Name the most common type of schizophrenia whose sufferers often have delusions of persecution.
PTSD.
Incorrect. Unlike the disorganized type of schizophrenia, disorganized speech and disorganized behavior are not present in this type. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, in 2013, removed this and the other categories of schizophrenia because the conditions are not stable. Name the most common type of schizophrenia whose sufferers often have delusions of persecution.
Bipolar.
Incorrect. Paranoid schizophrenia. And that concludes our match. Who'd you say? Who'd you say? St. Joe's Mami is on the left side, St. John's is on the right side. Okay, let's start with St. Joe's Maumee. State your name and the buzzer, please.
Abby.
Levi.
Elon.
Alex. Sam. Grant.
West.
Declan. Joseph.
Ty.
All right. So 2 practice questions. Start off with math. Simplify the square root of 18a to the 4th power, b to the 6th, c to the 2nd. Answer is 3a squared, b to the 3rd, c times the square root of 2. Naturally. Second practice. It was the only South American country that sent troops to fight in the Korean War. This country ranks 2nd in population in South America. Name this nation, a leading
Brazil.
Incorrect. It was the only South American country that sent troops to fight in the Korean War. This country ranks 2nd in population in South America. Name this nation, a leading producer of petroleum and coal, coffee, and emeralds. Colombia. All right, now on to the match. The custom of tapping on a man's shoulder when you want to dance with his partner is called what?
Trading.
Incorrect. The custom of tapping on a man's shoulder. Bring it back. The custom of tapping on a man's shoulder when you want to dance with his partner is called what?
Trade off.
Incorrect. Cutting in. Name any 2 of the 3 signers of the Declaration of Independence who later served as U.S. Vice President.
Thomas Jefferson and Sam Adams.
Incorrect. Name any 2 of the 3 signers of the Declaration of Independence who later served as U.S. Vice Presidents.
John Hancock and Thomas Jefferson.
Incorrect. John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and Elbridge Gerry. The chemical form of this, such as that stored in fossil fuels, is the work of the Coulomb force during rearrangement of mutual positions of electrons and nuclei in atoms and molecules. Common examples in a physics class are a roller coaster at the top of a hill or a bow. Just before the arrow, or bow, I'm sorry.
Potential energy.
Correct. For a short while in 1789, it was known as the Department of Foreign Affairs. Name this cabinet department. Department of State. There are 12 of them in a measure of 3/4 time. What type of note has a stem with two flags and is half the length of an
16th note.
Correct. Known by a singularly inappropriate name, this great snow-covered island is a 10th century example of false advertising. Eric?
Easter Island.
Incorrect. Known by a singularly inappropriate...
Greenland.
Correct. Math question. Construct a sequence of 3 consecutive integers that have a sum of 261. Incorrect. I'm sorry. They did. Construct a sequence of 3 consecutive integers that have a common sum of 261. '86, '87, and '88. Eggs and petri dishes can be found in what scientific device that keeps objects warm and moist to help growth?
An incubator.
Correct. The earliest was unearthed in Ukraine in 1965 and dates back more than 14,000 years. What architectural structure is found on the vaulted roofs of the Taj Mahal, the Pantheon, St. Peter's, and the U.S. Capitol?
Domes.
Correct. He received 4 Pulitzers for poetry and a Congressional Gold Medal during his illustrious career. Born in San Francisco, his family moved to New England when he was a boy, and he was later named the Poet of Vermont. Who was this writer of works such as The Road Not Taken and Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening?
Mark Twain.
Incorrect. He received 4 Pulitzers for poetry and a Congressional Gold Medal during his illustrious career. Born in San Francisco, his family moved to New England when he was a boy and was later named the Poet of Vermont. Who was this writer of works such as The Road Not Taken and Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening?
Shakespeare.
Incorrect. Robert Frost. This quarterback, who was the first overall draft pick in 2004 and has 2 Super Bowl rings, compared to his father's 0 and his brother's 2. Name this player who in 2008 and 2012 led the New York Giants.
Eli Manning.
That is correct. Arrange 3 Civil War battles in chronological order from earliest to latest. Antietam, Sumter, and Appomattox. Sumter, Antietam, Appomattox. John Finch, an American inventor, was the first to demonstrate it as a means of transportation. In 1787, Finch first launched it and was issued a patent 4 years later. From those 5 ventures on the Delaware River, it was 20 years before any commercial success took place with...
A steamboat.
That is correct. They were previously named for the year of their appearance, but now they are named for the person instrument satellite or program that discovered it? Shoemaker, Levy, 9, Hale-Bopp, and Halley's are all example of what kind of heavenly body?
Angel.
Incorrect. They were previously named for the year of their appearance, but now have the name for the person, instrument, satellite, or program that discovered it. Shoemaker,
A comet?
correct. Mountain climbers refer to the tallest 14 independent mountains on Earth using this number, referring to that number of meters those mountains measure in height. What is the number also referred to in Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator character, the cube of 20?
$20.
Incorrect. Mountain climbers refer to the tallest 14 independent mountains on Earth using this number, referring to the number of meters those mountains measure in height. What is this number also referred or referenced in Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator character, the cube of 20?
$8,000?
That is correct. Math question. Solve for x. 5x plus 6 is greater than 8x minus 9.
X equals 1.
Incorrect.
Please repeat.
5x plus 6 is greater than 8x minus 9. Solve for x.
X is less than 5.
Correct. The name may come from a Persian word for a date palm or from the name of a Persian god. Both Iran and Oman only recognize innocent passage through it and claim parts of it as their territorial waters. What slender water passage off the eastern coast of the United Arab Emirates is the only navigable option for oil tankers traveling from the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea? Straits of Hormuz. That's it? Time. Hold on, guys.
We're tied.
All right, we have a tie here, so we're going to go 2 minutes. Ready? In 1923, he was born in Bavaria. He came to the United States when his parents fled the Nazis. He was educated at Harvard, specializing in international relations. In 1968, he was an advisor to President Nixon. Who was it? Henry Kissinger. Operas are usually classified according to the language in which they were written. Several composers have written successful operas, both in Italian and in French. But name the only composer to have written masterpieces in Italian and German.
Bach.
Incorrect. Operas are usually classified according to the language in which they are written. Several composers have written successful operas both in Italian and in French. But name the only composer to have written masterpieces in Italian and German.
Mozart.
That is correct. It was the first continental European country to undergo the Industrial Revolution. It has prospered in the past half century as a modern, technologically advanced European state and a member of NATO and the European Union.
Britain.
Incorrect. It was first continental European country to undergo the Industrial Revolution. It has prospered in the past half century as a modern, technologically advanced European state and member of NATO and the European Union. I'm talking about what country that became independent from the Netherlands in 1830.
Belgium.
Correct. That is it. All right, team members. We'll be doing a short break. Mr. Malone from St. John's will be bringing treats and water up to both sides in the front. You can stay here. Just ask that you throw your trash away when you are finished. And congratulations to a great first half.
Eddie, go get a garbage can. Light these off. I don't know. Mr. Carroll, who's next?
Test, test. Students, we have garbage cans in the back if you could throw your wrappers. And if you're finished with your water bottle, because we'll not be playing flip bottle, if we could throw those away. If you're not done with it, just hold on to it. Please just make sure it's under your chair. And we'll start here and again in about 1 minute. If we could start getting the students up here, their next match will be All Saints and St. Al's. So if those students could come up. All Saints and St. Aloysius.
Carly, sit next to Austin. Carly, sit next to Austin. I wanted to be in the middle.
This is the most nicest stage I've ever been on. I mean, St. Wendell's was nice, but
We need a judge
I've
up
done
here
it,
as well,
so
please, from
I can't see.
from St. Joe's or St. Rose. If we could have a judge up here, please. Okay, let's start with All Saints. Test the microphone and your buzzer, please.
Avery.
Jonah.
Bryce.
Spencer.
Owen.
Catherine.
Bella. Carly. Austin. Drew.
Okay. So 2 practice questions. First practice question. His garments were made of camel's hair. His food was locusts and wild honey. As the voice cried.
John the Baptist.
That is correct. Just kind of hold it. The last person who answered, just hold on to it, and then in your hand. There you go. Just so it'll help with the feedback. You guys are fine. Math question. Evaluate the absolute value of 2x minus 3y if x equals 2 and y equals 3. That is correct. Okay, here we go. Types include silky, soft and slimy,
Texture.
That is correct. Can you see this? The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution provides every citizen the right to be free from these 2 things. From what unreasonable act does the Fourth Amendment protect American citizens? Search and seizure. In baseball, this is charged when a pitcher touches his mouth while on the mound. If a ball is not out into play and a strike is not recorded, what is the result? Incorrect. Excuse me. In baseball, this is charged when a pitcher touches his mouth while on the mound. If a ball is not out into play and a strike is not recorded, what is the result?
A ball.
That is correct. The life of an insect is one of metamorphosis, stages that make drastic change in the form and function of the insect. 4 stages are observed in this process: adult, egg, larva, and pupa. Place them in the order in which they occur. Egg, larva, pupa, and adult. When she learns of her beloved's marriage, she takes furious revenge upon the messenger and grows content only when she is assured he married a short, low-browed, round-faced woman with bad hair. Although the titles of Shakespeare's dramas name many kings, the only queen named in the title of a Shakespeare play is what alluring ruler of Egypt? That is correct. The Oxford English Dictionary says this 2-word expression dates back only to 2004. It refers to websites and apps that let users network. What is it?
Social media.
That is correct. They were called bird farms during the Vietnam War and flat tops during the Second World War. A steam-powered version of the catapult launches jets from them. What Navy vessel am I talking about? That is correct. Math. To move a rock in your garden, you apply a force of 40 newtons to a lever which applies a force of 480 newtons to the rock. What is the mechanical advantage?
Green.
440 newtons.
Incorrect. To move a rock in your garden, you apply a force of 40 newtons to a lever which applies a force of 480 newtons to the rock. What is the mechanical advantage? Incorrect. Correct answer is 12. Its area is 2,100 square miles, about the size of the state of Delaware. It has twice as much lithium as exists anywhere else in the U.S. It is 6 to 8 times saltier than the ocean, but it's only 30 feet deep at its deepest point. What am I describing?
The Dead Sea.
Incorrect. Its area is about 2,100 square miles, about the size of the state of Delaware. It has twice as much lithium as exists anywhere else in the U.S. It is 6 to 8 times saltier than the ocean, but it is only 30 feet deep at its deepest point. What am I describing? That is correct. In this figure, the diagonals are perpendicular bisectors of each other, and the area equals half the product of the diagonals. One diagonal divides it into two congruent isosceles triangles. If it has right angles, it's a square. What is this quadrilateral with four congruent sides?
Trapezoid.
Incorrect. In this figure, the diagonals are perpendicular bisectors of each other, and the area equals half the product of the diagonals. One diagonal divides it into two congruent isosceles triangles. If it has right angles, it's a square. What is this quadrilateral with four congruent sides? That is correct. An example of this literary device in John Steinbeck's novel of Mice and Men, George killing Candy's dog portends George killing Lenny because Lenny is similar to the dog. It may hint at some trouble that will happen later in the story. What dramatic device can be defined as a hint of what is...
Foreshadowing.
That is correct. William Cromwell argued that for a while Senate John Tyler Morgan was among a group that argued for a different location. John Finley Wallace was appointed as the chief engineer by President Roosevelt. He was followed by John Frank Stephen and George Washington Goluz. What is this 48-mile long waterway? Answer is Panama Canal. This state has the fourth longest coastline after Alaska, Florida, and California. Sanford Dole served as its first territorial governor, having previously served as its president. What is this state Incorrect. This state has the fourth longest coastline after Alaska, Florida, and California. Sanford Dole served as its first territorial governor, having previously served as its president. What is this state visited in 1778 by Captain James Crook?
North Carolina.
Incorrect. The answer is Hawaii. When observed in the sky, this planet has an apparent magnitude that ranges from positive 1.6 to negative 3.0. Its rarefied atmosphere is about 96% carbon dioxide, constituting an environment that some scientists conclude is adequate to sustain life in.
Mars.
That is correct. Humans, unlike other animals, lack the ability to produce or to store this compound and therefore must include it in their daily diet. Lack of this compound in a person's diet has long been associated with scurvy and recently linked to heart disease. What is this vitamin? Also
Protein.
incorrect. Humans, unlike other animals, lack the ability to produce or to store this compound and therefore must include it in their daily diet. Lack of this compound in a person's diet has long been associated with scurvy and recently been linked to heart disease. What is this vitamin, also known as ascorbic acid, which is found in citrus fruits? That is correct. That is the match. Final score is 9-7, St. Al's. Next match is Cardinal Stritch and St. Joe's Maumee. All right, let's start over here with Cardinal Stritch. You could microphone and buzzer, please.
Wyatt. Dylan. Colin. Kyle.
Kent.
Francis.
That works. We're good with that one.
Barrett.
Charlie.
Jake.
Emma.
All right. So 2 practice questions. It's the only landlocked country in Southeast Asia. Name this Indo-Chinese republic whose neighbors are Thailand, Burma, China, Vietnam, and Cambodia.
India.
Incorrect.
Please repeat.
It's the only landlocked country in Southeast Asia. Name this Indo-Chinese republic whose neighbors are Thailand, Burma, China, Vietnam, and Cambodia.
Japan.
Incorrect. Laos. This expression means to have an ulterior or selfish motive. It comes from a story attributed to Benjamin Franklin. Supposedly, Franklin, as a young man, was questioned by an old-timer about how the grindstone worked. Ben discovered the joke was on him when, following the man's encouragement, he kept working until the man's tool was sharp. What's the phrase?
Gullible.
Incorrect. This expression means to have an ulterior or selfish motive. It comes from a story attributed to Benjamin Franklin. Supposedly, Franklin, as a young man, was questioned by an old-timer about how the grindstone worked. Ben discovered the joke was on him when, following the man's encouragement, he kept working until the man's tool was sharp. What's the phrase? Have an axe to grind. Okay, here we go. Henry VIII of England replaced government officials with nearly the same ardor as he replaced his wives. Cardinal Wolsey served as his Lord Chancellor and died on his way to the Tower in 1530. Who replaced Cardinal Wolsey as Chancellor? Thomas More. These organizations always oppose merit pay proposals. What do we call such organizations, which include the AFT and the National Education Association? Teacher unions. In the 1850s and 1860s, he served as a European correspondent for the New York Daily Tribune. When founded, the Black Panthers embraced the dialectical materialism of which German thinker long exiled in London, who wrote, "The history of all hitherto existing societies is the history of class struggle." Karl Marx. They are calibrated either to contain for volume inside the cylinder or to deliver for volume poured out, accounting for liquid traces left in the cylinder. It's used to measure the volume of a liquid. What piece of laboratory equipment is named for the horizontal markings on its side?
Graduated cylinder.
That is correct. No. All right. Its first recorded use was by Sir Walter Scott in an 1817 letter. Which three words, referring to the three basic parts of a gun, make up an expression meaning completely? Lock, stock, and barrel. A violin and a clarinet are playing the same tone at the same time, but it is possible to determine which instrument is which. Let me start over. A violin and a clarinet are playing the same tone at the same time, but it is possible to determine which instrument is which because of this property of musical sounds. What is the quality that distinguishes a musical sound? A six-letter word starting with T. Timbre. They previously constituted the province of Canada that combined with Nova Scotia and New Brunswick to become the Dominion of Canada. The province of Canada was divided into what two provinces?
Nunavut and Nova Scotia.
Incorrect. They previously constituted the province of Canada that combined with Nova Scotia and New Brunswick to become the Dominion of Canada. The province of Canada was divided into what two provinces? Ontario and Quebec. Math problem? Evaluate the absolute value 3a minus 2b squared if a is negative 2 and b is negative 3. Incorrect. Evaluate the absolute value of 3a minus 2b squared if a is negative 2 and b is negative 3.
$42.
Incorrect. 24. Its longest river is the Tay. Its largest island is Lewis and Harris. Name the country bounded by the North Sea to the east, the Atlantic to the north, and the Irish Sea to the southwest. Scotland. He doesn't get paid much doing it, but what does Bob Cratchit do for a living working for Mr. Scrooge? Incorrect.
Please repeat.
He doesn't get paid much doing it, but what does Bob Cratchit do for a living working for Mr. Scrooge? He's a clerk. During the nullification crisis, he threatened military action against South Carolina if it seceded. He vetoed renewal of the Second National Bank. In 1835, the U.S. national debt reached zero under which U.S. president, marking the first and only time that the U.S. or any other major nation in history has been free of debt. Andrew Jackson. In theology, the apostolic kind is the belief that bishops inherit the spiritual authority of the apostles. In politics, it's the method of automatically filling a vacancy in the absence of an election. In ecology, first grasses, then bushes, then evergreens, and finally deciduous trees grow in an area in which process. Secession. During Reconstruction, many African American families rented and farmed parcels of land in return for part of the crops they grew, an arrangement called tenant farming, or what?
Indentured servants.
Incorrect. During Reconstruction, many African American families rented and farmed parcels of land in return for part of the crops they grew, an arrangement called tenant farming or what?
Tenant farmer.
Incorrect. Sharecropping. Beginning in 1808, this city was the seat of Queen Maria I, who raised it to the level of a kingdom as part of the Lusitanian monarchy. The sixth most populous city in the Americas, it was the capital of its republic until 1960, when Brasilia took that title. What is this city, host of the 2016 Summer Olympics?
Rio de Janeiro.
Correct. Math. Solve the inequality 4x minus 5 is less than 2x minus 15. X is less than negative 5. That is the match. St. Joe's 4-0. Now our final match of today and the season, St. Rose over on the left, St. Al's on the right. If we could have a judge up here as well too, please. While we're waiting, of St. Rose, if we could start, test the mic and your buzzer, please.
Allie.
Emmy.
Sam.
Eli.
Janelle.
There you go.
Isabel. Kaden.
No. Jason. Chase.
All right. 2 practice questions. The John Philip Sousa Bridge, the Frederick Douglass Bridge, the Rochambeau Memorial Bridge, George Mason Memorial Bridge, Francis Scott Key Bridge, Theodore Roosevelt Bridge all lead to what city?
Manhattan.
Incorrect. Sure. The John Philip Sousa Bridge, the Frederick Douglass, the Rochambeau Memorial, George Mason Memorial, Francis Scott Key, and Theodore Roosevelt bridges all lead to what city?
New York.
Incorrect. Washington, D.C. The first mate had intended to escape by raft, but several of the crew begged him to take the ship, and the mutiny had started. Name this longtime friend of Captain Bligh. Fletcher Christian. All right, here we go. While working in a Philadelphia shipyard, Richard James was trying to find a way to keep delicate instruments on Navy warships from being damaged by the recoil of large guns. He tried suspending the equipment from wire coils, and although this failed, he accidentally dropped one of the coils on a stack of books and watched as it walked down the steps of the books. Name the child's toy James.
Slinky.
Very good. Math question. How many seconds are there in 1 hour and 15 minutes?
$95.
Incorrect. How many seconds are there in 1 hour and 15 minutes?
210.
Incorrect. Correct answer is 4,500. It has been suggested that it has lost more than half of its natural cover in the last 30 years due to runoff, bleaching, and starfish outbreaks. What is this 133,000 square mile ecosystem off the Queensland coast, the world's largest structure created by living creatures? The Great Barrier Reef. Arrange 3 structures in chronological order from the earliest to the latest. Eiffel Tower, London Bridge, and Empire State Building.
The Eiffel Tower, the Empire State Building, London Bridge.
Incorrect.
London Bridge, Eiffel Tower, Empire State Building.
Correct. It has been replaced by positive pressure ventilators that work by blowing air into the patient's lungs by intubation through the airway. Give the common name of the negative pressure ventilator into which polio victims were placed when they...
Iron lung.
Correct. In 18th and 19th century Scotland, this named a person who made a living waiting around for odd jobs. Now it refers to the guy who carries a pros golf clubs.
Caddy.
Correct. There are no fewer than 21 works by the same artist with the same view as this one, including the enclosed wheat field after a storm and mountainous landscape behind St. Remy. Painted in 1889, what is this painting including an idealized village, a cypress tree, mountains, and a swirling night sky by Vincent van Gogh?
Starry Night.
That is correct. There are 13 of these in the United States, the largest of which is in Alabama. They share their name with a city in the West Midlands, home to the Aston Village Football Club. What name is shared by these cities, including the second largest in the United Kingdom and the largest in Alabama? Birmingham. He drafted the compromise that had Texas give up disputed territory and abolish slavery in Washington, D.C.
Lincoln.
Incorrect. He drafted the compromise that had Texas give up disputed territory and abolish slavery in Washington, D.C. John Quincy Adams named him Secretary of State in a so-called corrupt bargain. Name this great compromiser, perhaps the most famous legislator ever from Kentucky.
Ulysses S. Grant.
Incorrect. Henry Clay. Commenting on her 1956 marriage, her father remarked, "She went on to the French Riviera to make a picture called To Catch a Thief. And look what she came back with." Well, what she came back with was Monaco's Prince Rainier. Who was this actress who became a princess?
Marilyn Monroe.
Incorrect. Please repeat. Commenting on her 1956 marriage, her father remarked, "She went on to the French Riviera to make a picture called To Catch a Thief. And look what she came back with." Well, what she came back with was Monaco's Prince Rainier. Who was this actress who became a princess? Grace Kelly. Math question. Evaluate the absolute value of 3a minus 5b squared if a equals -3 and b equals 2. Galileo got in trouble with the church for a work presented as this form of conversation. The work of Plato were most often written as though they represented conversations between two or more people. Such a conversation is known by what three-syllable term? Dialogue. Physicist Martin David Kamen was the first to show that in photosynthesis, this molecule and not carbon dioxide was the source of the liberated oxygen. It's the most abundant greenhouse gas in Earth's atmosphere. What is this molecule?
Ozone.
Incorrect. Physicist Martin David Kamen was the first to show that in photosynthesis,
Ultraviolet.
incorrect. Correct answer is water. He owned estates at Oak Hill near Middleburg, Virginia, and Ashlawn Highland near Charlottesville, Virginia. Like John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, this president also died on Independence Day. He was the last of the so-called Virginia dynasty. Name him.
George Washington.
Incorrect. He owned estates at Oak Hill near Middleburg, Virginia, and Ashlawn Highland near Charlottesville, Virginia. Like John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, this president also died on Independence Day. He was the last of the so-called Virginia dynasty. Name him.
John Quincy Adams.
Incorrect. James Monroe. It was named for a Rutland, Vermont native who moved to Illinois to escape bankruptcy. Their recent products have a digital right management locks on software, preventing do-it-yourself repair, contrary to the work ethic of their purchasers. The logo for which company's agricultural equipment is a green quadrilateral with a leaping quadruped in yellow.
Windows.
Incorrect. It was named for a Rutland, Vermont native who moved to Illinois to escape bankruptcy. Their recent products have digital right management locks on software, preventing do-it-yourself repair, contrary to the work ethic of their purchasers. The logo for which company's agricultural equipment is a green.
John Deere.
Correct. That is it. Score is 9-0, 10-0, St. Rose. So we can hang tight for a few minutes. We'll have the final results of the season. All right, if I could have everyone, well, you can come up and get your candy canes, those participants, and then we will announce the league winner. No, thank you, though.
Thank you.
There's some over here, guys. Okay, so we can finish up. First of all, I want to say congratulations to everyone. Thank you for a great season. Thank you for, I'm sure all the students don't mind getting out of school for a little while, and this is a great competition. And I enjoyed going to the different schools and watching it throughout the year. So, final results, we have a tie for third place. Third place tie is St. Rose and Cardinal Stritch. Congratulations. In second place is St. Joe's Maumee. And in first place is St. John's Academy. All right. Anything from the coaches? We're good? We did record this. It was streamed St. John's has a YouTube channel, so we did stream it. So we'll send a link out to the coaches. So if you want to go back and watch it or whatever, you can. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great Christmas and safe travels home.